Welcome to Game Day Sports Radio and College Football Crazy 8 Pick'em. First, I'd like to thank YouTube and their creator studio for their help over the last couple of days with some of our technical issues last week and getting everything worked out for us and helping us put some promos together. So if you are a creator on YouTube, it's definitely a resource to take advantage to. Their customer service department was great helping us out this week, so I want to thank them for that, and should have a flawless upload this week, so I want to thank them for that. So interesting week in college football. Steve, real quick though, we would be remiss if we didn't give you an opportunity to bask in the Longhorns' glory. So break it down for us really quick. Quinn Ewers, does he put himself in the Heisman race?
Okay. I don't think every time any player has one good game that it puts them in the Heisman race. So I wouldn't go that far. And I'm also very excited and, to be honest with you, somewhat relieved that not a single player or coach mentioned the words Texas is back, because they haven't really done anything yet. Now, that being said, it's a big win for the program, and I think it gives Sark the credibility and sort of the feather in his cap that people have thought is coming, and it shows that the recruiting that he's been doing is paying off, the coaching that he's been doing is paying off, and for whatever reason, he seems very comfortable matching wits and calling plays against that Nick Saban defense. So I don't know if Texas has more talent, but they were definitely the better team on Saturday.
Coach, I think
first time that Texas has beat a top 5 team on the road since 1969 when they beat Arkansas for the national championship back in the old Southwest Conference days.
Yeah, that was the game of the century where Nixon was in attendance.
Flew in. I remember that as a kid, him flying in with a helicopter and set up there in the stands just like everybody else, of course.
And declared them the national champions after the game, not even waiting for the Bulls to be played.
Exactly. Yes.
Coach, did you just reveal to us how old you are?
Hey, I'm an old guy. I don't mind telling you.
Hey, Coach, so I think one thing that probably worried me about Bama more than the quarterback situation down there was the defense. I mean, a lot of underneath routes open, a lot of short passes completed. They were able, they completed some long passes, but those long passes were open because the underneath routes were there. I mean, they nickel and dime Bama pretty good throughout the night. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, it's like Steve said. Sark knows what Nick Saban does defensively. And it's a lot easier to adjust a game plan offensively than it is defensively. It's just a ton easier. And that's why you see defenses kind of try to hold their cards close to the vest until the second half so they can give the offense something that they can't go in at halftime and sit down and talk about for 20 minutes. If they're going to make an adjustment to it, it's going to have to be over there on the sideline between series. If you go back, and again, a lot of people are not going to do this, but Sark, if you look at the first interception that Texas made, they ran what they call a switch route on defense where they swap coverages. If you go back and you look, it is the exact same coverage that Clemson ran against Alabama in the national championship game. And in the very first series, picked Tua off and ran it back in for a touchdown. That was the very same coverage that Texas ran, and there was a reason for that.
And so I'll just say that Texas had pressure on Alabama, and Alabama, we joked going into the game that let's hope that the quarterback for Texas doesn't get knocked out, because that seems to happen every time they play the Tide. And you know how many sacks Alabama had? None.
I don't think they have a couple of pressures on the kid.
So a source on coaching staff at Alabama told Game Day Sports Radio that the plan was to possibly look at other quarterbacks in the second half, but that every time they looked at maybe making a switch, that Jalen Milrose did something, fumbled the ball and then threw a touchdown. Do you think maybe you see shake up at quarterback this week, maybe even just a rotation to look and see what some guys do in actual gameplay for potentially the following week against Ole Miss?
Well, hell, they play South Florida. I could play quarterback this week and win. And I'm 62, almost 63 years old.
All right, let's just get started. All right, Coach, I got you fired up there. That was my goal there, is to get you fired up. This first one I know you love to talk about all the time. It's against the spread, LSU -7.5 versus Mississippi State. I'm a little surprised to see LSU getting this many points just because, they did not look good against Florida State in week 1. And they did start. I know they blew Grambling out of the water, but they started off a little slow, giving up, I believe it was 14-10 at the end of the first quarter against Grambling. But then they ended up turning it on there. But maybe that was their wake-up call. But who do you like? LSU -7.5 versus Mississippi State.
I like LSU, and I'll take LSU in the points. I don't think the Mississippi State defense can. I mean, hey, LSU put up 72 against Grambling. Come on, so I mean they got the offensive firepower. But if you think about it, LSU lost to Florida State last year. Things kind of worked out for them. They shot themselves in the foot late in the season. So, their season, that's not a conference loss for them. And I think at the end of the year, if you look back, if LSU is 11-1, that's a pretty quality loss. But in this game, I like LSU. Like Will Rogers a lot, Mississippi State, but I like LSU in this game.
Steve?
I'll take Jaden Daniels to execute Brian Kelly's offense well this week, even on the road in Starkville. Go Tigers.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you both. I think Mississippi State a little bit better than Penn. I think they flew a little under the radar after the Mike Leach situation last year. I like them getting the points, and I think there's bigger problems in LSU. I think they got a little bit more hype than they probably deserved off that Bama win last year. I still think they're good, but I just think maybe they're a little bit reading their own press clippings. So I'm going to go with Mississippi State. And the 8 Ball agrees with me. The 8 Ball likes Mississippi State as well. So we'll see. We got an even split there. I like this 4-4. So we'll see. 2 of us will be happy and 2 of us won't. All right. Next game on the slate. Steve, everybody loves the third weekend in college football, especially in the South, when you get Tennessee versus Florida. This is a straight up pick 'em game. I think, Florida did not look good against Utah. But then again, what does that game really mean after Utah escapes with a win they probably shouldn't have gotten against Baylor this last weekend? Tennessee, a slow start against a cupcake this last week after, beating again a Virginia team that lost to James Madison. So I think you're going to get an idea of where those two teams really stand this weekend. So what do you think?
Tennessee 2-0, and while QB Joe Milton gets most of the hype, running back Jalen Wright leads the offense. He's averaging just over 9 yards a carry. Florida didn't do much in that season-opening loss at Utah. Okay, but Graham Mertz has been accurate. He connects on 74% of his throws. Florida has lost 6 in a row to ranked teams, while the Vols have won their past 10 contests in September as a favorite. Do the math. It all adds up to a big win for Rocky Top.
Coach?
Gators going to be toothless in this one. It's all volunteers. Tennessee.
I agree with you. I like Billy Napier down there in Florida, but I just don't think he's – I don't know what's going on down there. And then again, they had that problem where they signed the player to the big $13 million contract, didn't have the money, and I think there's problems athletically across the board down there that I think are even a lot more that are below the surface. So I'm going Tennessee as well. And the 8 Ball likes Tennessee. Okay. So Mac Brown, typical Mac Brown fashion, goes out and delivers in the big rivalry game, North Carolina versus South Carolina in week 1. And then for the second year in a row has to escape with a victory against a formidable Appalachian State team. Finds himself against the Big Ten Minnesota Golden Gophers. Most people like Minnesota in this game. Drake May, surprisingly, is finding himself in a very balanced offense this year. But North Carolina averaging 482 yards per game, 238 through the air, 243 on the ground. But what does it for me on this one is, and I think that's what you're going to see, Minnesota only putting up 332 yards per game, but they are they like to run the ball just a little bit more. And North Carolina's rush defense is, I think, a little bit better. I look for North Carolina to win this one and cover the spread. So I'm going with North Carolina. Steve?
All right, both teams 2-0. North Carolina avoided that upset, having to go to double overtime against Appalachian State. I think Drake May starts putting up some big numbers this week. I think he'll have a big day, so I'll take Mac Brown and the Tar Heels minus the points.
Boji?
Appy State has got absolutely nothing to lose. All the pressure's on North Carolina. There's a reason that Alabama won't play UAB, Troy, Jacksonville State, those type schools, because those guys come in, you know, they can take the half court shot for the $10,000. Alabama can't. And so same situation with North Carolina and Appy State. And, you know, I never liked those games if I was the favorite. Never liked having to coach in those because it's a no-win situation. And so I think that you can't read a whole lot into that game other than the fact North Carolina did handle the pressure and get it done. I don't think that Minnesota is going to be able to handle North Carolina's speed on the perimeter. And because of that, I like the Tar Heels.
There you go. There you go. Well, Tar Heels are -7, and Minnesota thinks that's too much to cover. So 8-Ball likes Minnesota plus the points. So there you go. You know, Minnesota seems to sneak up, and they are tough to go against. They don't like to surrender many yards. But the three of us like North Carolina. 8-Ball says no way, Jose. He's going with Minnesota. So, Coach, again, hadn't heard much about Arkansas this year. You know, they kind of laid a little bit low. You know, Sam Pittman. You know, he loves to take chances. This is against the spread game. Arkansas -8.5 against BYU. Steve, are they in the Big 12 now? The Big 18, the Big 16?
Close. Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Coach, Arkansas -8.5 versus BYU. Who do you like?
I like Arkansas in this one. I think that Sam Pittman, you know, they're kind of rolling along. And, you know, BYU traditionally has not done well against SEC teams. And so I'm going with Arkansas, and I'll give up the points and take the Razorbacks.
Steve?
Yeah, they'll be calling the Hogs in Fayetteville. I also like the defense. I think life is going to be miserable for Keaton Slovis and the Cougars. Give me the Hogs.
Really? Breaking with you. I guess you're already getting on the SEC train before you get the year before you guys move over, huh?
Exactly. Fellow conference mates.
Trying to offer the olive branch to the rekindle the old rivalry, right?
That's
How big
right.
was that? How big was the Texas-Arkansas rivalry back in the old Southwest Conference days?
I'm telling you, it was a big deal, especially to Arkansas. Arkansas being the school that wasn't in Texas, you know, them and OU always felt like we have to go show the other 8 schools that are within the border, you know, that they're not the king of the hill. So I'm telling you what, when Lou Holtz was there at Arkansas, they circled that game every year. It was a big deal.
And is that one of those deals that you see Jerry move into Jerry World, Dallas, Texas, split in the middle?
I could definitely see that happening.
Do you? Okay. Well, you know what? I'm breaking with the pack here. We're going to have another split in the middle game. I'm going BYU. I'm going BYU with the points, the 8.5. You know, BYU always seems to sneak up on somebody, especially an out-of-conference matchup. They just seem to frustrate people, and I'm going with BYU. You know what? And the 8-Ball likes the Mormons as well. 8-Ball's going with BYU. So, Steve, we're going to keep it close to home for you. You know, again, Horned Frogs shocked by the prime time in week 1. -7.5 against Houston. Dana Holgerson went there with a lot of fanfare. I think they thought they'd have him in the national championship. Now he's got him in the Big 12. So you got TCU -7.5 versus Houston. Who do you like?
It's hard to tell what TCU is after that shocking opening loss at home to Colorado and then a cakewalk against Nicholls State. QB Chandler Morris has been very accurate, and scoring points should not be a problem. Houston is trying to bounce back after losing the city championship to, of all people, Rice. Dana Holgerson better start earning that big contract, but I don't think he gets it going this week. I'll take the Frogs minus the points.
There you go. Coach?
Well, Chad Morris may not have had success at Arkansas, but he had success raising a quarterback because his son is a very good quarterback, and he makes good decisions. I like him a lot, and I like him to more than cover the points against Houston this week.
So I'm assuming that's TCU, huh?
That's a TCU, Horned Frogs, yes.
Yeah, I agree. TCU. And I guess, I think you got to look at and take that, especially after week 2. And we talked a little bit last week. What did Vegas know that we didn't know? I think Vegas didn't know. I think nobody really knew, and you go back, I think Vegas still doesn't know because Vegas only had Colorado at over under on wins for the season at 3. And now they've already got 2 in those first 2 weeks of the season. So I think Coach Prime has everybody a little shocked. And I think, when you look at the transfer portal, that makes it difficult for people to really maybe predict somewhat what impact that's going to have over the summer until you see it on the field, kind of a little bit like free agency. So I am going TCU as well. I think that first week is just they got beat by a better team in Colorado, and I don't think that's any implication of what TCU really is. However, the 8-ball likes Houston and what Dana Holgerson is doing down there. So we got 3 TCU and 1 Houston. So Steve, unfortunately or fortunately for Coach's sanity and the fact that he's getting a little bit older and his ticker up there, is I drew the Purdue game. So I had no choice but to put Purdue on the schedule. It's a pick 'em, all right. We had very limited week 3. Our pick 'em games are very limited. But Steve, Hudson Card, your guy from Texas, is up there at Purdue. So I mean, does that change the economics and the physics of that Purdue team up there now?
Well, there's a reason he's not at Texas anymore. But in this matchup against the Orange, I think it's the Boilermakers defense that's going to make the difference. I think they'll shut down the Orange, so I'll take Boilermaker.
Okay, Purdue. Coach, do I just go ahead and put down Syracuse for you? Do I even ask?
Why do you even ask? You could have just gone straight to the next segment. Yeah, Syracuse.
Yeah, I'm going Syracuse. I can't. Coach and I rode him as long as we could last year. I mean, we rode that horse farther than Seabiscuit. And even when I think Coach even bet his house, I think somehow you worked out a deal to keep it. But I'm going Purdue. I just can't. I mean, I'm going Syracuse. Sorry, I can't say it. I can't even believe those words just came out of my mouth. Okay. And the 8-ball. Oh my gosh, the 8-ball is going to back you too, Steve. It's going Purdue. So, I mean, the 8-ball's a glutton for punishment. So, hey, Steve, I mean, Coach, this is always a fun one. It's a pick 'em, the backyard brawl, and I'm surprised this rivalry doesn't get a little bit more hype. I think it's where it falls, time of year it falls, and just for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to get the hype. But it's a fun and exciting matchup, and it usually, regardless of talent and whatever, it seems to always be a good matchup. But Pitt versus West Virginia, this is a straight up pick 'em game. Who do you like?
And this game used to be at the end of the season all of the time. And implications, when Dave Wannstedt was coach of the Panthers, Rich Rodriguez was coach of the Mountaineers, all Rich Rod had to do was beat Pittsburgh. And they were favored by, best I can remember, Steve, they were like 20-plus point favorites in that game.
Yep.
And Pitt came into Morgantown and upset them, kept the Mountaineers out of the national championship game. This game, I'm not even going to talk about players. I'm going to talk about coaches. Pat Narduzzi, defensive-minded coach at Pittsburgh. Neil Brown, offensive-minded coach at West Virginia. However, Neil Brown's been at West Virginia a while, hadn't been able to get it going. And to me, I think this game determines whether Neil Brown is back at West Virginia next year or not. And, I don't think he's going to be. I think this is a Pitt win. And the hot seat from Neil Brown goes from 6 to 9 with a loss here on Saturday.
Well, a lot of people were surprised that Brown held on to his seat. I mean, there was a lot of talk that that he was going to be let go at the end of the year, but some turmoil in the previous coaching regimes, and I think there was just a feeling that they needed some stability there, and that was the only thing that kept him from getting terminated last year. Steve.
Mountaineers QB Garrett Green only connects on 58% of his throws. However, that's better than Pitt QB Phil Jerkovich, who's only hitting on 49%. I think Green can avoid the costly turnovers that cost West Virginia a year ago. So I'll take the Mountaineers in Morgantown to get revenge.
Wow. Wow, Steve, I was a little surprised to see you go there. I think there's a little turmoil there in West Virginia, as Coach mentioned. I think Pitt's the safer pick there, but you're getting out there on the edge with the 8-ball. The 8-ball agrees with you, Steve. The 8-ball agrees with you. So, however, I'm going with Pitt myself. So I jumped the gun there a little bit. I just wanted you to have a little bit of. I kind of saw him the 8-ball over here already shaking, so he was excited to see that he had some company with Steve. For whatever reason, the 8-ball's feeling some Steve love this year.
I like another 2-2 game.
So, all right, Steve. Washington minus 16.5 versus Michigan State. Kind of just brought this one in because, I think on the face of it, you would normally see this game probably feeling a little tighter of a line, but I think the Mel Tucker news probably has got this spread a little bit wider. Question is does his team play for him, or do they let the scandal? Obviously, he's suggesting that the allegations are false and unfounded. And is going to fight him. So, does his team fight for him? How do you see this one going? Do you see this as, the blowout it could be, his team fighting for him, or just, who cares game?
Huskies are 2-0 entering the road contest after they crushed Tulsa 43-10. Michael Penix Jr. coming off a 28 out of 38, 409-yard, 3-touchdown performance. Sparty is 2-0, fresh off the 45-14 shellacking of Richmond. State is averaging 35 points a game, but this is a big step up in competition. And with all that drama you referenced that's going on in the Michigan State sidelines, I'm going to take the Huskies to win big.
So you're going to take the Huskies minus 16.5.
I am.
All right, Steve, a bold pick there. Coach?
It's not hard to be successful. It's hard to stay successful. Since Mel Tucker signed that $95 million contract, Sparty has a losing record. I think that this is a situation where even if he survives this scandal, which I don't think he does, but even if he does survive it, they're going to end up firing him anyway. I like Washington big. I'm with Steve. I like them big in this game.
All right, I agree with you guys. I think Washington.
And I'll say this. Had Mel Tucker gone to LSU, Michigan State could have got a hell of a lot better head football coach for $95 million.
Yeah, I agree. And again, that was that area of coaches getting hired and extensions based off emotion.
Yeah,
it'd come off like 2 big wins there, right?
Yeah, well, and look at it this way. Look at the coaches that got those type contracts. Charlie Weiss got a great contract from Notre Dame because they almost beat USC. And he gets this unbelievable contract. Did that work out? No. Gus Malzahn gets this stupid contract from Auburn. Not stupid for him, but stupid for Auburn. Did it work out? No. These things never work out. Never, ever work out. Jimbo Fisher, it's not going to work out.
No, they looked horrible. I mean, they looked horrible. In fact, their team, I think the ESPN or ABC commentator put it best. That was 50% of a move and 50% of just poor tackling. Texas A&M at times looked uninspired in that game. Wouldn't you agree, Steve?
Yeah, they thought at that point it was better to let them score. They were trying to get the ball back.
I got you. Well, you know what? The three of us like Washington to run away with it, but 8-ball says he thinks there's some value in taking the 16.5 points. He thinks Michigan State covers. So one of us will be potentially happy or sad there. So, all right. So Kansas State versus Missouri. Oddly enough, this is a pick'em game. You got the SEC versus the the Big Ten there, and not Big Ten. I'm sorry, Big 12. Everybody's moving around these days. It's hard to keep track. Kansas State, as everybody remembers, last year was vying for a position last year in some thought the title game if they could have gotten through to the Big 12, but they were there into the very last weekend and rallied, but had some quarterback issues. But are putting up some great offensive numbers again, almost 500 yards a game of total offense, 300 yards of passing per game, almost 200 yards of rushing. Only allowing 38 yards of rushing on their defense a game. Missouri, though, stingy, got a stingy roughing defense, but Kansas State's just going to be way too much for Missouri. Missouri just doesn't have the horses, and they don't have the Jimmies and the Joes. So I'm going to go with Kansas State on this one. Steve?
I think the Tigers' defense can shut down K-State, and I will stick with SEC going against the Big 12. Give me Missouri.
Wow. So, all right. All right. Hey, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a little side bet on that one. And if Kansas State wins, then Texas has got to give Alabama the victory back, okay? And if Missouri wins, then you can keep it.
If K-State wins, I'll give Alabama 9.5 points.
Okay. Coach?
Well, this used to be a border war from back in the old Big 8 days. And a lot of, again, showing my age, the last time that a conference and the SEC would say, oh, we're the greatest ever. The last time that one conference finished 1, 2, and 3 in the rankings, it was the Big 8. It was Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Missouri. And again, this back in the Dan Devine days at Missouri. But this game, Kansas State, I'm really torn here. I like Kansas State. I'm going Kansas State. I'm just bouncing this one back and forth all, since we got these games. I've been bouncing this one back and forth. And I want to go, my gut says Kansas State, and then I start rationalizing why I should go with Missouri. But I'm going with Kansas State. Forget it.
I looked
Go
at this
Wildcats.
too. I looked at this too, and I mean, on paper, everything says Kansas State, and I think Steve, and I gave him a little bit of a hard time there, but I do think that Missouri has, if they play, and I think, again, that's one of the things that kind of makes college football so great is you don't know some things that you don't know at this point in the season. And this one is being an 11 o'clock game, sets the table for the day to some extent. And again, I think still you don't know what you don't know about Tennessee, Florida this weekend. But one thing that we do know, hold on a sec. And I'll tell you one thing we do know here after I tell you that, Steve, you're on your own island on this one because the 8-ball like Kansas State, okay? But what I do know for sure is on this next game, before kickoff, there will be one man getting seconds at the buffet, and that's Brett Bielema from Illinois before he kicks off against Penn State. Penn State getting 14.5. And I don't know what we joke around about it, but you know what? By all accounts, Brett, and we'd like to joke around about the guy, but by all accounts, Brett Bielema is a great guy. He's a great coach. He's bounced around. Players love him, and he does do some good. He is a guy that he wins. He may not win enough games to stick around, but he's turned that Illinois program around because they were 3-win program, and now they are. And but he's got a tough order this week. That's why he likes the buffet, so he doesn't have to order. Good joke there. Crack myself up a little bit with that one. All right, Coach, but break this down for us. Penn State minus 14.5 versus Illinois.
There's Neil Brown took issue with James Franklin scoring a late touchdown with his twos a couple of weeks ago. I don't see anything wrong with that. It goes back to what I think. If you're the defensive coach, it's your job to stop them. It's not their job to stop scoring. And
a little hypocritical though too, because didn't James Franklin take issue with Jim Harbaugh not too long ago for running up scoring?
Well, but again, he might be a little hypocritical on that. I don't know, but evidently he's got no problem scoring late, and I got no problem with anybody scoring late. Again, defensively, it's my job to stop you. It's not your job to not score. As a matter of fact, if you get a quick side note here, and I won't mention the team, but I was a defensive coordinator when when I was at Eastern New Mexico, we were playing someone, and we started taking a knee with 3 minutes to go because the score was 62-3. And had we just turned around and handed the ball off to the fullback, he would have run for a touchdown, 40, 50 yards. We just had them outclassed. And so, but at the same time, from a defensive standpoint, I would be so embarrassed if a team did that to me. So I've always been like, no, you just bring me your best. If you score 90, you score 90. I don't care. And but James Franklin, he's always kind of been, a little bit of a whiner when things go against him. And when you whine, he wants to take the high road. But I don't think he's going to have any problem whining on Saturday. I think Penn State's going to put up a bunch of points against the Illini. I like the Nittany Lions.
To your point on that, Coach, last year we Steve and I talked about on a show about Ryan Day in Ohio State. I think you remember Ohio State kicker ran a fake punt that wasn't called in a game they were way up, and Ryan Day used it as a learning opportunity for the player. But at the same rate, if you went back and looked at it, the defensive team didn't even rush. They all just turned around and ran.
Yeah, this is my problem with that, though. This is my problem with that. And it's got nothing to do with the fact that he did it. But this is, from a coaching standpoint, we don't need that right now.
Well, exactly. But you could tell, and that was the thing. But the point about it is Ryan Day knew that, and he addressed it with the punter. That was a player being a player, okay?
Yeah.
But at the same rate, what Steve and I pointed out is, that's a player being a player. And he took an opportunity because he saw it. Okay, now Ryan Day said we don't need that right now. Exactly right. But everybody's calling Ryan Day out. But at the same rate, the defense does have a responsibility to play the play not take the play off. Now, if Ryan Day called that, then absolutely. But he didn't. So both sides, everybody has a responsibility, like you say. And just like you said, the defense has a responsibility. Yeah. And I'm like you. What's more humiliating, taking a knee with 5 minutes left in the game? But anyway, so all right. So Coach likes Penn State minus the points. Steve, what do you like?
Well, Penn State's been lighting up the scoreboard. They have over 1,000 yards in 2 games. I don't think the Illini can score enough to win this fight, but I like getting 14.5 points at home.
You're going to Illinois?
I'll take the points.
Well, Steve, you know what? One thing I've learned, if you follow the man at the buffet, I'm going to follow you too. So I'm going with Illinois as well. All right. What was that place in Dallas we always used to go, Super Salad? And, we'd watch all those people load up with all the health food and then pile on all the ranch and all the other stuff that was great for you. So so I'm going to Illinois too. But you know what? The 8 balls learned to follow the wise one, the coach. Oh, wise one. So they're going 8 ball too. So that little magic ABC 8 ball right behind you, Coach.
Yeah, that's
so
because,
there you go.
That's because when you're, or at least before they started closing down, when you were in Dallas, you had to go to Furs. That was the buffet to go.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Oh, yeah. I remember Furs. Yeah, and when you were out in New Mexico, I'm sure that's where you lived, man. They probably hosted your coach's show.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right. Well, thanks for joining, everybody. You scan the QR code down at the bottom. Once again, thank you to YouTube Creator Studio and the Creator analyst, or not the analyst, but the Creator support team that helped us get some of our creative challenges and our technical challenges solved. Really appreciate them as we are learning every day on how to get better at what we do. Thanks, Steve, for all your insight, especially on I don't know who that. If you can talk intelligently about the Arkansas-Texas rivalry, you might be older than Coach.
I watch a lot of old videos.
Yeah.
ESPN Classic, is that still out there?
It's on the Deuce, the Trace, the Ocho.
You still got analog cable?
Sure.
So, anyways, all right, guys, enjoy your week, and we look forward to some good college football this weekend, and maybe who's going to be under center for Alabama. So, and the kid Steve, once again, congratulations. It's a victory that they will play in the ESPN Classic for years to come.
Well, like Coach said, it happens every 50 or 60 years, so we got to enjoy it while it's here.
There you go. Talk to you guys soon. Enjoyed it as always.
Enjoyed it.